Welcome to the Public Sector Show by Tech Table. Super excited to have you both on, both brand new guests. We'll have a ton of fun. Dave, let's kick off with you. Short intro.
I'm Dave Weil, Senior Vice President of Strategic Services and Initiatives at Ithaca College. Been there my whole career, but I think we'll talk a little bit about that a little later. I have a portfolio that includes HR, IT, analytics, and AI.
We will definitely unpack that on this episode. Mark, quick intro.
I'm Mark Richards. I'm the Senior Manager at Omnissa. To put this out a little bit, former end-user computing division of VMware. We got spun out from Broadcom when that was purchased, and we're our own company. So I like to say that we got 15-year-old technology with a 1-year-old name. But I've been doing this space for over 30 years, designing, implementing, architecting solutions, and been in the education space for quite a while as well.
So Dave, we're going to kick off with you. When we met on our intro call, we talked about leadership matters, and which is also in your headline on your LinkedIn profile. And you had a quote, I think I got it right. You said, we lead people, we don't lead technology, we lead people that lead the technology. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Over the years, I believe so much that leadership really does matter. You could have two organizations with great people in it, but if you don't have the leadership, you're not going to accomplish what you want to do. You're not going to have people that are motivated, you're not going to have people that stay, things like that. So I really believe leadership matters. So the corollary to that is I'm an IT guy, or at least that's where I grew up in, but especially as I've gotten up higher in the organization, I really realized I'm not leading the technology, I'm leading the people that lead the technology, because it's people that make it happen. And it's a different way sometimes that we need to think about our roles.
Yeah, I really like that. As a quick follow-up, so there was a book that you had mentioned, The Power of Mattering.
Yeah.
And how it came about was I coach high school basketball, and I talked about how it was interesting for me. Got this team, they were losing, and then suddenly they started winning when all of the kind of human aspects, when the team started to buy in. And so you had mentioned that there was a chapter in there of a hockey coach who inherited a losing team. Same kids, different coach, created a culture of mattering where they started winning. Walk us through how you've applied that mattering concept to your IT team of 65.
I really believe in connecting the work we do with those we serve. And so I look for every opportunity possible to bring the students, they are our why, into the equation. So create opportunities for students to meet with our staff. We actually have, if you were in our offices, our hallway has all of these portraits of students that used to work for us that are now out in the world doing great things, working for great companies. And each one has a quote about how their experience working for us really made a difference to them. And so the idea is so that everyone in the organization, whether it's a frontline service desk person, a database administrator, security engineer, they can see how they have a piece of that puzzle that really makes a difference. And it really matters, the work that they do for our students.
So Mark, you had told me that you had tried to leave public sector multiple times, but tell us about what keeps pulling you back. What's your why for coming back and serving in public sector?
You're exactly right. I think everybody who gets in the public sector at some point in life feels that they're not getting, we're the Rodney Dangerfield of the industry, right? We just don't get the respect. And at some point you're like, I want to get a little respect. And I think I actually told Joe, I had an opportunity. I got out of public sector for 6 months, and it was the easiest job I ever did, because I was dealing with companies that didn't have as much regulations, didn't have to deal with all the other parts of budget crises, can only buy at certain times of the year. And I found that it was really easy. And I told my director that, and he just kind of laughed. That lasted 6 months because an opportunity opened back up in SLED. So I came back into it. But it really does stem, I think, from the beginning. So my father was on the college board. I grew up in Danville, Illinois. He was on the area community college board. So I was ingrained with that. Education has always been pushed. He was the first one in our family to get a degree. He was a veterinarian, got it from University of Illinois. So that was always pushed there. And then when we turned around and looked at it, he also worked with the former governor of Illinois, the one that didn't go to jail, Jim Edgar. Unfortunately, he just passed away. But part of that, so when I start looking at it, is that's where I keep gravitating to, and it's really giving back to everybody, right? It really is, and I think that's what public sector is really about. It's not giving up your life, it's giving back and making a difference that's there, and how can we do that? So if there's any way that I can help solve problems for yourself or anybody else, that's what we want to do. That's why I keep coming back.
So that's you. Now let's tie it to Omnissa. What's the mission of Omnissa for serving in higher education specifically?
That's a great segue into what we're trying to do. So when we really look at it, education is a huge part. A lot of people look at it from technology as hey, if I have a device that you can touch and feel, they put it in front of you in K-12 and it works its way up and then you use that later in life. We're behind the scenes type of technology, right? We bring security to device management, put patch management, physical labs going to virtual labs. We do a lot of things like that. So what we're trying to do is understand what some of the challenges you have and then build a solution around that without breaking the bank, right? We want to make sure, and it's not about rip and replace, it's about how can we integrate what would you already have. So we talked to a customer just the other day, or school just the other day, and they said, we're growing, gangbusters. We don't have any space. How do we get space? That's where virtual comes in space. So get rid of your physical labs, turn those into classrooms, which gets more students into the university, and allow you to still have that teaching from anywhere and those type of things. So from all sides, but that's really what we're focused on. We have a whole division that's just public sector and just SLED specific now, and this is where we're moving. So we have products that are just for education, and we try to fine tune them based on like feedback that you would give us going, I sure wish you guys did this and not that. Well, let's hear it. Let's bring that so we can make sure we're hitting what you need.
We're going to talk about, so just the AI augmenting the human piece. And so great segue. So Dave, your team built something called Nebula, an AI tool for your ICare team. So before I go on that first, what is ICare?
So at Ithaca College, IC, we have a team of professionals. They are essentially social work. So they work with students that are showing signs of distress. So maybe they're not showing up to class, or they're having challenges with their roommate or other things. And historically, those things add up. And sometimes the students would end up leaving the school because they weren't fitting in or they weren't feeling it. So the ICare team was formed a number of years ago as a way to work with students that were in this situation. Well, over time, so let me back up there for a second. So anyone on campus, if they see a student who's struggling, can make a referral to the ICare team. And then the ICare team triages those referrals because obviously some are more concerning than others. And the concerns that the students they were most concerned about would then get referred to actually meet with an ICare counselor. And then our studies show that if those students do have the meeting, they will generally retain at a higher level than students that are referred, but they don't end up meeting with the ICare professionals. So all that sort of set up the scenario where ICare was not able to meet with all the students that should have had the conversation. So they approached IT and they said, hey, how can you help us meet with more students or with this problem? So that's the setup.
So you had also mentioned to me that it helped freed up 150 students last academic year who wouldn't have gotten that face-to-face support that they would have gotten otherwise.
That's right.
Yeah.
So in talking with the ICare team, it turns out that they would spend up to an hour a day doing research. So if you were referred, they would look at your course schedules, They would look at your academic record, activities you're involved in, things in your residence hall and all that to build an idea of who you are before they would have the meeting. That took an hour a day. And so we used AI to actually get that down to a minute. And so across the ICare team, that resulted in the savings of an hour a day, which resulted in them being able to see 150 additional students this last academic year. And as I said, we have the statistics about what that translates into. We believe that we had 8 additional students retained as a result of those additional meetings. That's 8 additional students that are able to complete their college career and move on to other things. And I think that's a win. And it's a great use of AI because it's not that the student's meeting with AI, but the AI is allowing better human to human. And at Ithaca, that's really what we're looking at in terms of use cases for AI. It's like we don't want to take away from the human. And that's a key part of who we are. It goes back to the leadership conversation we were just having. But this use case, in my mind, it's perfect because it actually enhances the ability to have these important conversations.
Yeah, there's that real, what is the business problem? What are we actually trying to solve here versus just slapping AI a sticker on everything?
Sometimes when I start the story, people immediately go, oh, you created an AI bot that the student who was having trouble with could then talk with to resolve their problems. No, we want to actually have them meet with a human and have that.
That's huge, by the way. That's huge. Yeah. That's awesome.
So now what we're trying to do is we've had this very successful. Now we want to scale this. So we want to look at other offices across the campus that maybe are busy doing some things behind the scenes, taking them away from the human to human where we can get that done with some AI tools, still have the results of that go to a human to interpret it and stuff like that, but then frees the people up to have more interaction with the students.
I can see that pulling that into the guidance, right?
Yeah,
And if I'm a student going in there
absolutely.
and you can look beyond just what classes did I take and what do I need to take,
Yep.
that's going to push me towards a career versus...
even like student financial services, where you come in and have questions about your bill or whatever, the amount of time they have to do researching your situation or whatever, that information could be there more quickly. So I think there's dozens and dozens of use cases across.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. Mark, are there any use cases that are percolating top of mind? I think you just said guidance, counseling.
Yeah, I look at those type of things, and exactly right. AI is a great tool, and obviously we're all talking about it. And I'll give an example if that's all right, and you may be leading to this, so maybe I'm jumping the gun about my son. But so my son goes to Michigan State University, and he's a history major. But he's a history major that doesn't want to teach.
Okay.
Exactly, that's the exact same look I get from a lot of people, but he loves the research.
Sure.
I was asking him this summer, we were driving back from campus actually, we went up to do a visit, and asked him about AI, and he said, yeah, we really don't use AI in the history college. And I asked why, and he basically said, I don't know, but when I talk to my instructors, they're really down against it. So I prodded a little more. We had a 4-hour drive, and he basically came back and said, with all the stuff that's going on in the world, we're afraid people are going to change history. So they're looking at AI as a negative because any one of us can go erase history by putting it in a data lake that says this is what comes out. So I thought about it and I said, but what if you're the content creator? What if you're the builder? And Joey's not coming for your job. But when we talk about it, it's really type of that. So I said, so if you're doing the research, if you create the research yourself, and I don't know if you've looked at Notebook LM and how that works. So I had him take one of his research papers, put it in Notebook LM, and start looking at it from that. And all of a sudden he got it. But he didn't get it quite away. He was still argumentative with me, as children can be. And I basically, last word was, if you don't embrace it, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, it's definitely a debate we're having on campus, is how do we prepare our students for an AI workplace? And there's a lot of debate about, should faculty be allowing students to use AI as part of their coursework or not? My position on it is, I think we have to talk about the pros and cons. We have to educate. I think that's part of the role of higher education, is to ensure people understand the issues, just like your son was saying. But I also think we have an obligation to ensure people who are graduating from a college or universities are able to use AI, understand AI, and able to articulate the difference and the value that AI brings and the value that HI brings, human intelligence. And if we can articulate that, why a human in this role or position is better than AI, I think we're all going to be better served.
One of the things that I thought about this as well, we're a Catholic family, and he was talking about having some saints and stuff like that. And his some friends, little brothers going through school, and they have to pick the saint they have to go through. And I'm like, he goes, yeah, there's some chatbots out there about, they're not chatbots, but GTP bots that are out there. And I said, what if, let's take this from the history side. What if I took that and did the study and put it in place, and you as a 4th grader can have a conversation with that saint?
Exactly right.
And he just said, huh, and I said, what if I did that with anything? The Battle of 1812, the Battle of the Bulge, you pick whatever one you want.
Right. Or you could even say, what happens if the other side won the battle? And project that out. And I think, again, we don't want to take it all at face value. We want to question and analyze it. But I think it can really open up possibilities. And there's a lot that's been written or discussed about the ways you use the AI tool. And I think one of the best use cases for it is brainstorm.
Yeah.
So, hey, how would this work or that work? But you still then use your cognitive abilities to refine and make it your own.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was it 30 years ago, 25 years ago when Google came out and everybody goes, oh my gosh, the world's done because all you can do is search something. Yeah. That's where we are with AI. And Google changed the world, but they didn't change the world. I learned how to search better, which made me find things better.
It made the world smaller.
Made the world smaller, correct, yeah. And AI is going to do the same thing because it pointed me the right direction, so I wasn't banging my head, I was able to use my head for the right way.
The other piece is, and we're like, Joe's not here anymore, right?
Yeah.
That's the other piece.
I should just leave it.
But the other thing about AI is you're using AI, you're saying AI, you're saying AI, I'm saying AI, but AI is such a broad term or broad field. There's so many different aspects of it, and I think it's really important for us to take a step back and be more nuanced in about what AI means. A lot of the examples you're using is generative AI, chatbots. The Nebula example is actually AI that's making use of institutional data And it's not a chat bot. It has programming, predictive programming behind it. There's a lot that's being done with privacy and de-identifying information before we're sending it to the large language model and all of that. It's still AI. And then we actually been using AI for a long time. Machine learning predates November 2022 when ChatGPT 3.5 came on the world. So my point is, I think we really have to get more nuanced in our conversations about AI. Yeah.
It's interesting because at Omnissa we use AI as well. Everybody does.
Yeah.
But ours is more agentic. So when we really look at it, we want to look at it from a device. And this is one of the use cases we do. We talked to Pima College down in Tucson area, community college. One of the things they looked at is, do I refresh laptops and devices for faculty every 3 years? But what if I can avoid that? And how do I avoid it? It's all about user experience. So if I have something that's looking at the device to understand what it's doing and how your experience is on there, and then use the data and the telemetry from that and tie it into maybe a CrowdStrike, maybe some other site, and really look at it, I can determine, did you have a vulnerability that needs to be patched? And because you have application A and B, actually the risk score is a little bit higher. How do I resolve that? And do I want it to automate and have a human involved or just go fix it itself? And at the same time, if your machine's broken, we're going to replace it. But if it's not, I've got a Mac that's 5.5 years old. Guess what? I don't need one. Do I want one? Sure, everybody wants one. It's an Intel-based Mac, it works perfect. And the feedback we get from our company looking at it says, you got more than enough power that's running on that thing. It's probably going to last you another 5 years, as long as the OS is supported. But those are the type of things, like you said, it's not just pure AI, we're looking at it from that side, and we're not stealing data, we're not taking data. It's data that you already have provided. It's your metrics. We're just looking at them a different way and letting you define what you want to look at.
Use the AI tool to do that. And so on campus, probably across the globe, but at Ithaca, there are people that are saying like, no, we don't want to use AI. AI is bad for a number of different reasons. And I think those are good conversations that we have. But again, it needs to be more nuanced. And I think there's definitely concern about intellectual property. There's concerns about the environment and their benefits. We have students that are able to continue their college career because we were able to use these tools. So you want to pull us back on script here, Joe?
There is no script. That's the secret. No, this is great. I love that the two of you were engaging. Just kicking off again, going back to Pima College, also Tarrant County Community College. If you just want to talk more about what you're seeing with those customers across the country from Omnissa's point of view.
Yeah, I'll talk about Tarrant. I know that's one before. So they have several 100,000 of students, about 100,000 FTEs. But when we look at them, community college, so a lot of them are re-educating. So they may have lost their primary job or they want to switch careers, but they still need to work. So they have a 9-to-5 type job or swing shift hours, whatever it is. So you're not your traditional student. So they're not necessarily coming on campus every single day. So you have to think outside, how do I still do this? Do I turn into an SNHU where I'm just totally online and hope I get a good education, or do I go to an education site? What they've done is they've taken virtual desktops into virtual labs, and when you enroll in a class, they automatically give you the application or desktop that you need. Therefore, you can consume that from home or during your break on shift, whatever you have, so you can actually get educated instead of forcing somebody to come back and sit on campus. They may only be taking 2 classes that semester versus a full load because that's all they can either afford or have time to take. But this allows them. It also, for lower income, doesn't force you to go buy a big beefy computer. If I have a Chromebook or an iPad or anything, browser, that gives me access into maybe an engineering application, and that's going to allow me to be retooled. So we do that with a lot of education that's out there, but specifically, that's what they did. And before, they were having people drive all over the Fort Worth area, which if you've been there, traffic's not the easiest. And do you really want to get done with your shift at 6:30 and now hope the lab's open by 9:30? You're going to get there at 8:30 and get an hour? Or I can just go home and work till midnight.
Does Ithaca have any satellite campuses or anything like that?
We have out in LA where a number of our communication students go, and we also have one in London. And so there are a number of students that go over to London every semester for that.
Yeah, the reason I'm thinking about that is, again, I was having this conversation with Joe Weil, who's now at UCLA, before he was at USC, and there's just only so much space in Southern California to house kids. Like, you just hit the capacity limit. And even same thing with his buddy, and they came on yesterday, BC Hatchett, who's at Vanderbilt. And what does it look like? What does that student experience look like? How can you deliver the Ithaca College experience in LA? or in London, right? And technology is going to be driving a large part of that. I'm curious, do you do a lot of work with colleges that have those satellite campuses where you're working with them to help deploy?
We do. There's usually two types, right? There's the systems, like the UT system, that there's a large number. People think of CUNY, like the city universities in New York, and there's campuses all over. But they're independent colleges or universities inside the system. So that's one way. And the other is exactly how you're stretched internationally or have programs. We worked with Carnegie Mellon one time, and they have places in Rwanda. So they're teaching classes there. The problem is, all of a sudden, we get with international law on software. And
Right.
can I actually have that software running in that country? So when you turn around, yeah, we deal with a lot of them, but I don't want to downplay the power of what a remote desktop or remote application is. A lot of people go, that's so 2008, right? No, it's still valid, especially in education today, because I need to give secure access to somebody. We have the same thing where we have satellite campuses in China, or they have a sister school over there. The state government is known to come in there and just confiscate all the hardware. So you put a data center in Singapore and you're running everything out of there, and then Singapore has better laws with the US, and now you're not worried about export laws and you're not worrying about all of that. So we bring that in. But primarily one of the things I would say is because of where you're at, and I'm going to use your example with LA and London,
Right.
we would allow you to be in multiple tenants. So instead of building 3 separate systems to try to come up with a solution, it's Ithaca's. So you have it,
Right.
and you can deploy it, or not deploy it, you would just create, we call it an OG, but just an organizational unit out there and do role-based access in different compliances. So in London, there might be different compliances based on Brexit and some of the laws that are there. In California, you might have some state laws that require, especially education. We can manage those separately, but then you don't now have to create 3 different management teams. Keep your IT staff still at the 65 you have, and they can manage those really easy, but inherit what they need. That's really what we do, and in systems would be the same way. Each college
And if you think
independent.
about it from the student experience, it's one student, so they have a very similar experience no matter which campus they are on. So like for us, our students go out to LA for 6 months, and so they've already learned all the systems and everything at Ithaca, and so you want them just to be able to go out there and, oh yeah, I'm still at Ithaca College, so the experiences are the same.
And it's what I talked about with Taryn. If they were to go to California, we can move their device inside of our platform, and they would inherit any new policies or security they need. But more importantly, they would get the applications that are required to take the courses there. So you're not now having the IT staff try to shoehorn it in. It's just there. And when they come back, maybe those applications disappear. And hopefully they don't drop out where you need to take all their apps. But if they do, you go to LA, you never know. You might find the lights and stay here
That's right.
give it up for fame.
So jumping back and bringing the leadership piece back in, so you've got your team. I'm curious, there's a lot of moving parts. You've got, it was HR, and then what were the other ones?
HR, IT, analytics, and AI.
So there's a lot in there. How are you looking at building the next leaders who are, you can't manage everything yourself, you're only one human. What does it look like for you building out the teams on the IT side at Ithaca to help really drive the technology initiatives?
It's about the people, and I think I always talk about what I call the 4 rights. It's having the right person in the right seat, doing the right things at the right time. And there have been times in my career when I looked at an individual and I was thinking, they're really not working out. And I was getting ready on at least 2 occasions to go through the process to get ready to dismiss them. And then we realized that as a last effort, we moved them to a different seat where they had to do something else. And they turned out to be some of the best employees we've had because they were just in the wrong seat. And I think as we're building out our teams and thinking about leadership and everything, so I want to make sure I have the right leaders in the right seats doing the right things, and then treat them as partners. And I also very firmly believe in surrounding myself with people that have skill sets that I may not have, or so we balance each other out there. Yeah, you need to have the right people and then let them fly, let them do their thing.
Yeah. Are there any leadership programs that you've gone through, or is it books what's shaped your leadership growth?
Honestly, a lot of work at EDUCAUSE. I went through a number of the leadership institutes, and then more recently in my career, I've actually helped EDUCAUSE develop their Senior Director Institute, and most recently, the EDUCAUSE Leaders Academy, which is their premier professional development program for people that are right on the cusp of CIO. And it's a 7 or 8 month program, hybrid. But the best secret is, as you start developing those, it's actually great professional development for yourself. You have to think about what is leadership. And with Senior Director, I was literally given a blank sheet of paper, and they said, it was a small team of us, and they said, what should a senior director leadership program look like? Here's a blank sheet of paper, do it. In a way, that's cool. Another way, it's intimidating. It's, oh my gosh, what do you need to know as a leader and stuff? So we spend months talking about leadership among the faculty that were developing it and looking at the skill sets that would be needed.
Curious around, you meet with a lot of folks around the country, a lot of leaders. What are some of the qualities that you see in some of those great higher ed institutions on the leadership side?
I think a model right here is what David had said, to be honest. When you really look at it, a lot of times people come in and they want to put their name on this university. So they come in there and they say, we are doing this, but they haven't listened to the existing staff that are there. They haven't looked to see what tools, they haven't done anything. So we're going to get over there, but we have no way to build bridges to get there. So when you come in there, you alienate your team already there. You didn't surround yourself with the right people. So I'm tearing back what you had said in reverse order, but that's really what we see is what I see is out there. Somebody who's open-minded, right? Always wanting to learn about new technology, but not wanting to be on the bleeding edge. There's a time and a place to be on bleeding edge, and there's a time to be on the leading edge. And I find a lot of education wants to be on the leading, but on the backside of the leading edge. I don't necessarily want to be in the front of the leading edge, because what ends up happening is all these places here at EDUCAUSE, they have widgets or connections that go into it, and they're not fully baked yet because it's the leading edge. So if I wait just 6 months even, all of a sudden that one gap that's there comes in there. So I think it's really important for the leaders to understand who's on their staff, give them the rope to hang themselves, and then understand what the university is really about. Vision is huge. You can be a vision person and talk about where we're going to be in 2036, but if you don't know how we're going to get there, that's not a vision. That's just throwing spaghetti on the wall.
Yeah. And the other piece, something you said reminded me of it, is alignment of values and mission. I talked about our why earlier, but that's really all part of what are our values as an institution, and then how do the leaders and vision embody that in their work. And there's every organization has values and has mission, and you have to find people that can help you fulfill that vision.
It's a really competitive space for a student. Right, having recently had 2 kids going through and one graduating now, people don't understand that what the university values are, what the college they want to go into values are, actually makes a difference, right? It's not always, hey, you got offers to these 7 schools, great. And many times the kids choose the one that you don't expect them to, because I really like that program they're doing, and I like what they're doing. I like what they had to say, and I believe what they're doing, versus, hey, that's a great big school and I want to go to this one.
And so the AI example I used earlier about the Nebula and the human, that is one of our core values. The president convened a presidential working group on AI, and one of their charges was to develop guiding principles for our use of AI. And right up top, like the very first bullet, is we value humans, not the technology. I'm paraphrasing, but that's the essence of it. Now, this is the guiding principles for the use of AI right up front. It's about the humans. Not every institution would do that. Other institutions may have a much larger scale or be a more technical place. And so their values and their guiding principles are going to be different. One's not right, one's not wrong, but you want that alignment, because if you are someone who, wants more of the technology bent, maybe that's not Ithaca. But if you want the human to human, maybe that is Ithaca.
So as we start to close this conversation out, we covered so much, and then I should say you guys covered so much, because I just hung out with you for this afternoon. This is great. I'm curious, one of the things we had mentioned when me and you talked was that Ithaca is not like ASU. It's not like a giant system. So I'd love to hear from you. What do you think some of the secret sauce, the stuff that makes Ithaca special on the IT side? Being much smaller, you get that intimacy, you get that high relationship. As we head out, love to hear a little bit more on that front.
So in the IT organization, we value, within reason, we value experimentation, or culture of play, as I call it. So like when ChatGPT 3.5 first came out, I challenged the entire division. I said, play with it, experiment with it, let's explore it, and then let's pilot things. And so that's part of our culture. And that actually creates an environment where people feel that they have permission to explore it. And I think every institution does that to some degree, but that is part of what it's about. And then again, the connection with our why, the connection with our students. We really incorporate students in so much of what we're doing. I'm really excited. We're about to launch an internal internship program where the computer science department is going to be partnering with us and sending us students to actually do internships. We have student employees, but this is a little different. This has the academic component. And one of the first things we're going to have them do is build virtual environments for us and some other things. And so while it's a great win for the students, it's also a great win for our IT staff because they get, again, that connection with our why. So I think that's some of our special sauce or secret sauce.
Culture of play. That's great. Before you even get to, because then you go down the rabbit holes, right? What's the governance? What does this look like?
Yeah.
You know, like let's have a culture of play, and here are the guardrails.
Yeah, no, you need some of that,
yeah.
and I've done that. There was some feature that came out, I said, we're just not going to play with this, or we're not going to play with it on institutional machines, or we're not going to do that because we want to do it responsibly. But overall, it's like we need to explore it. So then someone comes and say, hey, I got this really cool use, or I figured out how to do X, Y, or Z. And we were doing something, and I've been stopped even here this week. People, are you really using AI in that way? Yeah, the guys, they figured it out. They were playing, and they figured out this connection, and then that allowed us to do this.
So you had mentioned earlier, before we get to your wrap up, you had mentioned Google Notebook LM. So I have been using it quite a bit. If you know anyone over there, I know they got to save to note, but they got to save the chat.
Same thing, I walked over yesterday and said, where's the microphone button? I have multiple ways to record audio, but I have an app, and if I'm in a classroom, why can't I just click it, record it, and now I have the actual recording plus the AI chat that it built and all the power that's there. And they're like, huh. So sometimes the most simple things are the ones that you forget about, right?
Yeah, I found myself using the voice exponentially more than typing. Anyway, as we close out, yeah, I'd love to hear just from you any kind of non-obvious insights that you see across the portfolio at Omnissa on the higher ed side. Anything that really stands out to you?
We're here talking about AI, but security. Many years ago, I'm gonna say 25 years ago, I was working with an individual at Auburn, and he said, this was his security pitch, and that was, I'm not worried about the outside world coming in. I'm worried about the students going out. Because they're the ones that are learning faster than everybody else, and they're the ones that are doing this. So when we really start looking at it, as you said, play is great, giving them the freedom to do things, but governance and what's around there. So security is a huge play, and we all know that, right? It's the obvious thing. But when I take AI and security together and start building that, so that's one of the things I think that hasn't really been done. Everybody around here has a product or something that says, oh, we do this. But what goes across where I can integrate between multiple products, holistically look at it, and then ask you, like an if then this that, how do I want this to be remediated? Do you want to remediate it on your own, or do you want me to take action on that? Or do you want me to give half of it to Joe, half of it to Wayne, half of it to somebody else and let it all go? I know that's multiple halves, but it's kind of giving it out there. For us, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at, let's get a platform that's out there. The platform can integrate with existing or replace as needed, bring everything that's there, but it really is a holistic view. The way we look at AI on our side, it really, as I said before, it's part of the data that you already have of your devices and people that are in there. We're not taking it from anywhere else, but if you want to feed data into it, we can ingest that and then turn around and say, let's go ahead and do this and this with it that's out there. So security focus is a big part, and people don't think that patch management's security.
Oh no, it's
Patch management's the biggest security, right?
Yeah.
We talked about earlier with somebody about QR codes. So if I have a device and I go scan a QR code, should you scan a QR code? I mean, we say no, but it really makes paying something at a restaurant really easy. It makes getting information really easy. But we actually were at a conference when we had a QR code, and when you scanned it, it came back and said, gotcha. And then it had a link there, and it was like, learn more about phishing and smishing and all those good, wonderful things.
On that note, actually, it's really funny. I was driving here in Tennessee. I've been here the last week or so. And there was a QR code on a sign, and it was like, do you want to leave California? And I took out my phone, and I was like, I definitely have listened to a cybersecurity thing. I am not going to scan this. I'm going to put my phone back in my pocket right now. So anyways, thank you for any, do you have any, is there anything, something that was about to bubble up?
No, I'm good. I'm
Okay,
good.
awesome.
But thank you, Joe.
Thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate you both.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's great.